The reason I was going to Western Samoa was because I wanted to move back out of the United States again. I had done a lot of this therapeutic work on myself, but I still needed to be someplace that was quiet and peaceful. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was still moving in my recovery process, but deeper inside myself. And Western Samoa helped facilitate that movement. Western Samoa is a Polynesian island, so before going there, I had to go to the University of Hawaii so that I could study the Samoan language. So I went there for about 8 months and I studied the language, and then I moved to Samoa. Most people don't know where Samoa is, so you have to take an 8.5-hour flight south of Hawaii to American Samoa. Then you take a 30-minute flight from American Samoa to Western Samoa, which consists of 4 islands. These are the 2 big islands, but I actually lived on one of the small islands that was between the 2 big islands called Manono. And here's what Manono looks like. The fascinating thing about living on this island was I never lived so in touch with nature in my whole life. We didn't have running water or electricity. All you had was the waves and the wind, and it was amazing. This was the house that I lived in while I was there. It was an amazing experience of just living very simply. And I lived with a wonderful family. They were fishermen, and they taught me how to fish and basically how to be Samoan while I was there. And it was quite beautiful. They also relax very often and really enjoy sort of reflection and reading. This is the little chapel on the island that I was assigned to. So I was supposed to be kind of their spiritual guide or leader, and I would lead prayers every day for them, and I really loved it. But what I realized during this time was I was really there for my own silence and solitude, and these amazing people helped me to relax into that. By sort of absorbing their way of life and their simplicity and their quietness and gentleness, I was being healed from all the turmoil and the violence and the disruption that was inside myself from having lived in the violence of the Middle East. And during this time, I was reading Samoan proverbs, and I found an amazing proverb that helped me so much. And that proverb was, everything happens for a reason. Everything has a purpose. Happiness comes from finding this purpose in your life. And with those words of wisdom, I ended up leaving Samoa, seeking out even a place of deeper silence so I could figure out what was going on inside of myself. And that took me to my next place, which is a hermitage in California. Now, those of you who are in TRE, you're going to understand this. I was moving into deeper solitude, and I didn't realize what was happening. But remember, in light of our polyvagal theory, I want to show you what was happening that I know now to help you understand this process. So if you remember, when I was in New York and I was going through the counseling in bioenergetics, I was actually coming out of that freeze response, which was kind of the first stage of the recovery process. What I didn't realize until later on, and now that I had all this solitude and silence, I was going through this second stage of the recovery, and that's where we talk about post-traumatic growth. And this is what so many people have talked about. Joe Dispenza calls it the transformation point, or reframing the experience, or the point of a new perspective. And Stephen Porges calls it moving from disillusion to evolution. And I didn't realize it, but that's what I was going through as I was seeking deeper silence. I was actually going through the process of what we call post-traumatic growth. And what that was taking all these experiences that I had had in Lebanon that were so difficult for me, and then trying to reframe these. I was transforming the experience through this silence and solitude, and coming out with a point of a new perspective about all of this experience, and hopefully moving from disillusion to evolution. So I moved out to a place called Big Sur, California, which is this beautiful drive along the Pacific coast of California. And I moved into this hermitage. It had spectacular views. It was 1 mile high off of the ocean, and every morning you'd wake up, you'd actually be above the clouds. It was spectacular. And all I needed was solitude and silence, and it was beautiful. Now, as fate would have it, I met two amazing people there. One was David Steindl-Rast, who was a Benedictine monk, and he had written a book called Gratefulness, the Heart of Prayer. And he was my spiritual guide while I was there, and he helped me reflect very deeply on the experiences that I had had, and I was trying to reconcile in my life. And his greatest message, which came from his book and from his lifestyle, gratefulness is the inner gesture of giving meaning to our life by receiving life as a gift. And grateful living is a celebration of the universal give and take of life. Now, these are powerful words to reflect on, considering all that I had just recently experienced over the past few years of my life. And he was just inviting us to be grateful for life itself, which was quite beautiful. I also met while I was there another Benedictine monk named Ulrid Squire, and he also had some very profound words for me. And when I was telling him all that I experienced in life and all the difficulties that I had gone through, he said to me, well, you can decide whether to continue or to stop in life. But what you cannot do now is to cease to experience what you have already experienced. With that wisdom, with that solitude and silence, I really went into a depth of myself that I had never explored before, and it was transforming me through life. Not negating or trying to get rid of the past experiences I had, but somehow incorporating them into my life, and as post-traumatic growth would say, it was moving from disillusion to evolution. So then this took me to the next part of my life, which led me to New Zealand.